Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from Central British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, oh, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia on the West Coast, right? Right. It's on the West Coast, and we are in Central British Columbia, beautiful, beautiful province. Today, we have a very, very special podcast, and the podcast is number 500, and we have Alex Sanfilippo, who is the CEO and founder of Podmatch. And Alex is very, very special because I talk about it a lot. He was the one that started podcasting way back then, 4 or 5 years ago, and we'll talk about that. And he was giving a presentation to other people in the early stages. I think it was in 2019 when they were doing podcasting. And he asked everybody, what is the biggest challenge for you as a podcaster? And the answer was the same with everybody as it would be with us, is finding the right guest is the biggest challenge. Hence, he started together with his friend, the Podmatch, and and I'm just looking for the name of your friend, Alan.
Jesse. Yeah, Jesse Hunter.
Yeah, yep. Jesse Hunter. And so they started Podmatch, and from very small beginnings to now they are a global organization, and obviously we use them all the time, and it is because of Podmatch and people like Alex that I was last week awarded the 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and I'm very proud of that. And so I calculated already, and I'm 85 years young, actually in another week from now. So I calculated what is the next step for YouTube is that it would be the diamond if you have 10 million. So I calculated by the time I'm 104, I will be having 10 million subscribers hanging up there. No, I'm just joking. But, but it is very, very interesting. Alex, I am proud of you on my podcast, an entrepreneur extraordinaire. Tell us all about it, Alex.
John, thank you so much for having me on. I'm still laughing at that last comment. You said like 104, you'll hit that number. And I'm like, well, John's going to be around for much longer than that. So I thought maybe you're just like, yeah, that's just the pace. But hey, seriously, congratulations on a million followers on YouTube. You don't ever hit that number without doing something very, very right. So congratulations. And man, I'm really proud of the work you've done. It's been really cool getting to know you over the years. And I'm a fan. I have a signed copy of your book for anyone just listening. I'm holding a copy of his book right now. Man, thank you. You're amazing. And I just really appreciate you having me on today.
And this is again organized by Podmatch. It is our 500th Podmatch where we are the host. And then in addition to that, we have probably also done 200 or so podcasts, but this one was number 500 where we are the guest or the host. And we thought it would be special if Alex could find the time to be on this podcast for us in particular, to speak about, podcasting, and then his journey along the way, starting as an entrepreneur and with golf balls and all those other things that we do as we go through it, and then ending up as Podmatch and having gone through all the ups and downs that I have. And I wrote another book about that, Against All Odds. The first book that I wrote is not about my success, but rather all the ups and downs along the way. And Alex will share with us some of the things along the way, and then in particular, Podmatch, where it is going, where it is now, and where do we go from here. Because I believe that podcasting is still on its infancy. It will explode globally, going much, much further than where we are today. And there is lots of opportunity. And with the regular news stations, CNN, ABCs, and all the other ones, Canadian broadcasting, BBC, are going down in viewership, podcasting is becoming more and more popular. Alex.
Man, I could not agree more with that. And by the way, congratulations on 500 episodes. I've been a guest on people's a number of shows when they hit 100 episodes. I've been on one podcast when they reached 200 episodes, but never 500 episodes. I tried to get my team to pull the numbers. It was hard to pull, but I wanted to let you know, when we look at podcasters that pass the 100 mark, so we take everyone else out, like the millions of podcasts that never make it to 100, multiple millions that never make it that far, but the ones that make it to 100, from 100 to 500, what are the chances of making it? And this is our estimate. It's very hard because there's so few of them, but it's 1.1% chance. If you already make it to 100, which I think is only like a 4% chance you're gonna make it to 100. So it's like, you think about it, man, like getting to 500 episodes just, again, says so much about you and about where you're going. So congratulations. And I think podcasting has a bright future for those who stick with it, just like anything in life, right? I think it's gonna be, like you're saying, a really good space if you stick with it. For everybody listening, watching, however you're tuning in, that's my encouragement. I mean, I'll share my whole story and journey, but at the end of the day, those ups and downs, it's sticking with it during them. And that's what really separates people like John. So congratulations again on that.
Yeah, and that would not have been possible without a team around you. And as you well know, for you, Alexia, your wife, and then obviously Chalice and Hunter, as well as the other people that stood by you when things got tough and difficult, but staying the course. And then for us, Podmatch was probably one of the most important steps that we did when we were sitting there and saying, where do we find the guest and how do we become more global? And obviously that happened about three years ago, I would think. And it has been amazing ever since. And I'm proud to have you and your team as being part of my team, and looking forward to many, many more years going forward.
Same. And thank you again for that, John. I appreciate it. I know you wanted me to jump into my story. Is now the right time to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that I'm guessing, because you mentioned golf balls, I imagine some people are still fixated on that because it's just not very common that you hear that, right? So
reminds me of me, actually. I very similar to you when I started already very early in life becoming entrepreneurial. So it's not uncommon for people that have been very, very successful and are, that it started all very, very early.
Yeah, and like you, I think that when you go back and reflect, you realize you actually kind of had sometimes like the kid version of yourself as entrepreneur was maybe a better entrepreneur than we are as adults, because we like fear less, right? Like we're willing to go out on the limb. And so for me, I started probably similar to you, John, but at 10 years old, I found a used golf ball across the street from where I lived. There was a golf course, and all the parents said, kids, don't go play on the golf course. What do you think we all did? We ran straight for the golf course every day playing on it. And I found a golf ball one day, and a golfer rides by in a cart and says, hey kid, what does that golf ball say on it? I said, Titleist Pro V1. And he goes, I'll give you $3 for it. Well, this was the 90s. And so I got $3, and all the other kids like, whoa, that's like 6 candy bars, like, whoa, no way. What are we going to do with it? I'm like, we're going to find more golf balls, and we're going to sell them on Saturday morning to any golfer who comes by us. And sure enough, that was like my first entrepreneurial venture. I wasn't paying taxes or anything like that. So it wasn't like a real business, but while I was a cute 10 to 12-year-old kid, that was kind of what I did. So during the week, I'd go find golf balls with some other kids in the neighborhood, and we'd sell them on Saturday morning, and we all got all the candy we wanted, it seemed. So that was kind of like my very young introduction and the capturing of the bug of entrepreneurship. I fell in love with not the money, but the business. Like I just liked the whole process of it. It was so much fun for me. And John, I imagine you have a similar story, right? Like it's probably the same for you.
Exactly the same. Again, when I was academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And so people said to my parents, and they were beautiful people, they said to my parents, what are you going to do with this guy? Maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So my dad had a friend that had a furniture factory, and he said, maybe you should go there and become a furniture maker. And at 12 and a half years old, and so that's what I did. So I became a furniture maker, and in the evenings I would go to the college and to become a furniture maker. And lumber always was important to me in my life. And then the other part that you already referred to is that I was born during the Second World War, saw far too much that we would not should not have seen, but we did. SPDD has been always part of my life. The inner child has been. And we were liberated by the Canadian Army when I was 5 years old. And it made such an impression on me that I knew that when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I did. And I wanted to start with nothing, from that point forward. And I had the dream of going to Canada to build a lumber mill, and all the timber is in British Columbia. And I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, very little money, took the plane to Montreal, then took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. Anyway, when I came to Vancouver, went to the immigration office, and couldn't speak English, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, and fortunately there was a German fellow there, and he had, I could speak some German, and I told him I want to build a lumber mill. And he said, go to Prince George, 500 miles north of Vancouver, 800 kilometers for European friends, and I'm still there today as part of, I travel all over North America, but I'm still there today in Prince George as one of my bases, and came off the bus and had my suitcase. I can still see the Greyhound station from here, 60 years ago. And so I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had exactly $25.47. But I did have lots of attitude. I always stay positive. If you're negative, stay away from me. And I still do that today. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. And then the other one is work ethic. Even today, I still work at nearly 85, a week from now, November the 1st. I will be 85. And so I still get up 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late, and I like it, and it's the land of opportunity, and a lot of the things that I wanted to do I have accomplished, so I love it.
Super inspiring. I mean, super inspiring. I love that. And that last part, like work ethic, like again, celebrating 500 episodes with this one right here, like obviously that means you've got some work ethic, because the thing about podcasting is, as you know, it's a bit of a labor of love. Like it can be, especially in the beginning, it's unrewarding, right? At first, you're doing it because you're passionate, because you've got something, a message you want to get out to the world. But most people don't, they just can't stick with it. And then after a while, burnout settles in, right? But for you, again, you've got the work ethic that just keeps it going, the passion behind it. I think that, and then the attitude that you bring to it, right? I think you embody those 3 things through your podcasting journey, which is just so cool to hear. Like from a young boy, not doing good in school, you just developed these 3 traits that have followed you your whole life and led to nothing but success. And happy birthday, by the way.
Well, thank you. And then the other part about it, Alex, as you well know, is there are challenges that the challenges have become the foundation where it did not go all that well, and that's where my book Against All Odds comes in, all the challenges along. And you have had the same, and particularly when I look at and I knew that already, but I look again at your bio, 2006 was not a good year for me either. I expanded my lumber company sizably, and 2005, virtually doubled or tripled it in size. And then all of a sudden, what happened? Interest rates went up in the United States, and particularly we sold a lot of lumber, and I saw it coming down. And fortunately for me, I ended up selling my recent acquisition of the one lumber company, and just in time. It did not survive the downturn, but then 2006 was the beginning, and then 2007, 2008, 2009 were very, very difficult. And you spend a time going from all the way from golf balls and to other things that you were doing and working for others into real estate. And so tell us about that, because all of a sudden that became a challenge.
Yeah, like you. I mean, I was in an industry that was totally affected by that economic downturn, right? Those were tough years. So the beginning of 2006, I was doing incredible, right? Like I had a software company that was supporting realtors and supporting people selling houses, kind of techie, nerdy stuff, but it was really lucrative. And then I was like, I'm going to start having rental properties. Buy and hold is gonna be my strategy. So I went all in on that. And I was like, I'm doing it. In 2006, the beginning of the year, I looked at like where I was heading. I'm like, I'm going to be doing really good. I was an early 20s guy. Like I mean, late teens. I was late teens, early 20s, something like that between those years.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, that downturn started. And so I went from like, really, if you think about 10 years old selling golf balls, I sold stuff on eBay growing up, did some other things. Like nothing ever failed. Everything just worked really well. This was my first reality check when I completely crashed and burned from doing really well to more debt than anyone in my age bracket probably had, right? And at that point, I had to humble myself. So I got a part-time job at a corporation, so I wasn't working for myself anymore, and I was a part-time receiving clerk, which John is the code for I took out the trash and broke down boxes for people. But that's what I was doing, like
Yeah.
part-time. So cloud nine, crushing it to in debt, only being able to earn a part-time income, and I'm grateful now to look back because that season really helped me grow into the person I need to become. I didn't let it defeat me. I kept on going. But I needed that reality check. I needed that humility to really step into what I'm doing today. But yeah, I did a 15-year sprint in big corporate. So I started at that point and I worked my way to full-time management, senior management, all that along the way.
And then something else happened to you that was life changing, and it related to religion in a way. You want to local, regional, when you were going through difficult times to I don't know exactly, it was a meeting of things that
Yeah.
interested you. You really didn't know exactly what it was, but it is the place where you would end up meeting somebody that played a big part of your life, Alexia.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, John. I appreciate you even knowing that part of my story. During that rock bottom season where I went from doing really well to not doing good, at that point I actually ended up in a church, which was something that I wasn't really open to before, but keeping like I don't even know how to describe it. I just feel like I found Jesus, which changed my life. I felt like I showed up, I came back a different person. It wasn't an overnight change, but I just found a new identity, a new foundation. I met my wife there, to your point. And I also met many great friends that encouraged me during a really rough season of my life. So I'm grateful. Like again, I found faith, found a new purpose, found a wife, which I wasn't looking for, found some really great friends who loved me for who I was, not because I wasn't successful at that point. Like they were just, they liked me for me. And that meant a lot. And I still have many of those friends today. Like many of those people are still the people in my life. So again, like I mentioned, like that was a bad season, but I look back now and I'm like, that was the most important thing that ever happened to me because I would not be the business leader I am today, the entrepreneur that I am today, without that whole season going through it. I don't even know what I'd look like, but not like I should and not like I am today.
So then, obviously, what happened is that touching on timing is everything. And for a lot of people, you have the history, as I do, as going through areas from very young, becoming entrepreneurial, seeing opportunity, if it were first for stacking shelves and folding boxes and reaching, going to the top in that organization, and then changing your life and finding your wife, and then podcasting came into the picture because before Podmatch, you already started in a way as I did. I was blogging first, then doing a form of podcasting on the local media. Then COVID came, and then I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to then I set up a studio that is mine. I had this apartment that we're sitting in here as an apartment. Say, let's start our own studio, and then we'll do some form of podcasting here, and then from local. But then the same question came up that you discovered in the United States, southern United States, I believe it was, and you asked all the people that were there, what is the biggest challenge? And is finding candidates or people that can be podcasted. And so that changed everything. And it was me then, when we were here, we reached the same and saying, how do we reach those people? And we started looking and then discovered Podmatch at the early stages. And so we talked already together then at the very early stages. And from that point forward, we being part of Podmatch is part of who we do, who we are, and what we do. And I, as I said earlier, it's just still at the beginning, and it's exploding around the world. And hence, I'm proud of my million subscribers on YouTube, obviously, and the 500th presentation to have you as the founder of Podmatch, which is such an important part of us on the success, and see that all happening virtually at the same time is amazing.
Yeah, again, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for being on Podmatch. Like, I remember when you all joined, I started listening to your show almost immediately. I was like, this guy's legit, Like, I was like, I like this John guy, like, because I could tell hearing your story. I'm like, we're actually pretty similar in a lot of ways, right? And
Yes.
so, I love that. And really quickly, to just fill a gap for anybody who's hearing, like, yeah, I went corporate for 15 years, had as much as I could. I started a podcast toward the tail end of that career, which I ended that career really well. So I'm big on, like, the way you end one season is the way you start the next. I want to make sure when I left on a really good foot. But then when I jumped into Podmatch full time, it came from an idea I had at a conference in 2020. It was right before the world shut down. There was about 2,000 people in the room in Orlando, Florida. And it was all podcasters. And anyone who talked to me when I got off stage, I just said, hey, what are you struggling with? And to your point, John, I kept on hearing the same thing. I'm having trouble finding the right guest for my show. Like, anyone can find somebody beyond, but finding the right person that's going to move the needle forward, that's going to get you closer to 1 million subscribers, right? Like, you got to have the right people to do that. And so that's what we set out to build. And for anyone who's not familiar, for lack of a better term, the way I describe Podmatch, it's like a service that connects yes and no's for interviews in an automated fashion. Works very similar to the way a dating app works, but instead of connecting people for dates, connects people for podcast interviews. And the whole idea, bringing the right people together faster and automating as much of the administration as we possibly can. And we just focus on continuous improvement. Like, we're just always trying to make that better and better, more efficient for people, more accurate. And it's a joy. I have really enjoyed being able to do this.
So where is it now, Alex, in terms of your organization? Because it will get bigger, larger, more demanding. The model is critical, because I look at it as a model that will play a very, very important role in what I call the new media, really. It's still on its infancy, in my opinion, becoming bigger and bigger. Where are you going as an organization with Podmatch? Is you one of the founders still sole owner, maybe not, or are you taking it anywhere else? Because I'm very interested, obviously, in it, because we say, where do we go from here? And saying, where do I go from podcasting, which we are doing successfully, I can say, and is that I want to go to, where do we go from here? Because to me, it's not about money, but it's about communications. I'm a communicator. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. That's what I do in my books. I've done 6 of them, and that's the 5th one, communication skills. And
yeah, I'm holding your book right now. It says $1 billion communication skills. I think that's what you do.
So where do we go from here? And saying that I'm also a presenter, but a lot of times when I do presentations in North America, it takes me 2 days. And so I'm much more effective in reaching, and again, looking at podcasting around the world through Podmatch, we probably have 1 million people watching us as we present with all the different, and just before you came on, I was on another podcast, and so that's what we do, is I do probably 3 or 4 podcasts where I'm hosting, and probably another 2 where I'm guesting. But in addition to that, I have 10 different companies. I'm still a writer and a presenter, and I'm only 85 years young. So everything is possible for anybody. And so where do I go from here? I'm looking forward always. I'm a strategist. Yeah. You are too. is saying, where do we go from here? I want to set up a platform, and I want to be more involved in how to bring people together around the world and communicating.
You know, I think the last thing you just said really, to me, captures the essence of where podcasting is an industry. So take Podmatch out of the equation. As an industry, it's connecting people globally. And I think that it's getting better and better at that. Until recently, there were some countries that still don't have the technology until recently, to be able to actually even listen to a podcast, much less watch. But some of the devices, the phones, are getting updates where now they're actually able to consume podcast. And these are countries, there's a specific continent, Africa. Most of it was unable to access podcasting, and now it's able to. We added 1 billion people to potentially become listeners, right? Like overnight. And I say we, this is like the industry at large. I was not involved in that. But I think that's really cool to be able to see the fact that, hey, this is becoming more accessible for the entire world. And the data is showing that people love podcasts. And one of my friends, he's one of the key guys in one of the biggest podcasting companies in the world, and at Buzzsprout. And he said it this way. He said, podcasting as a listener is the least intrusive form of media you can consume. All it requires is your ears. Doesn't need your eyes, doesn't need you to be involved and do anything. You can just put it in your ears and do whatever it is you want to do. And I think that people see that and they like that. And so for me, like, I'm looking at the industry at large. Podcasting is, like you said, John, I think is literally the best way to say it. It's in its infancy. It's the only way to describe it at this point. I think we're still just at the tip of the iceberg of where this thing is going to go. And so, and like you, I'm a strategist, and you already mentioned that. So when I think Podmatch and where we go from here, the first thing I want to mention is we decided not to take outside funding. So I'm one of 3 co-founders. It's me, Jesse, and my wife. The 3 of us are 3 even partners in it. And we set that up legally from day one. And we just decided, you know what, like, looking at what's happening to other podcasting companies, they're taking funding. Not all of them, but some of them, it's taking a wrong turn, and those companies end up disappearing. So I'm like, let's bootstrap, let's use our own funds to be able to serve in our own way, so we can continue to do that in a healthy way. And so for me, I just go back to my original question, John, of what are you struggling with in podcasting? And whenever we're kind of like hearing in the industry is what we start building into Podmatch. So we're always working to build and to release in real time. Like, I don't like to build for a year, then release something. I like every couple of weeks we release something new. And sometimes we don't even say it. We just wait till people see it or they find it, right? Yeah. And I think that that's served us really well. The next big thing I'd say that we're working on, though, is more ways for podcasters to collaborate. So not just having the interview, what else can those individuals do together? And can we facilitate that in any way? Just helpful. We don't want a piece of it. We don't want to be involved in your business, right? We just want to facilitate the introduction of, like, hey, John, you and Alex would work really well together. Here's where you can kind of take that into your own world now. Because we're seeing that the guest and host, they like to collaborate beyond the one interview. And so we're trying to build that out right now. I say trying to. We're actually pretty far along in building something out that should be a working prototype within the next few months. It'll be inside of Podmatch, but it's just another way to help that connection piece between now guest and host, host and host, guest and guest, right? All with the idea of how does this help the listener at the end of the day?
I like that, Alex. And then the other part about it is that, as you said at the beginning, is that a lot of people look at podcasting as something that will have very quick results in terms of listeners, or in saying that stay the course, because I went through all of that. All the way from blogging to the local television station, initially with Podmatch, but I saw the model works. And that's my strategic plan. That's what I do in my businesses. That's what I do in my books. Is the books that I have maybe don't sell too many copies, but I know in the long term they will be successful. Stay the course, don't give up. And so Podmatching is the same. You learn as you go. And then, the other part is say, where can I be different from others in terms of the things that I have control over? Is saying, obviously, Podmatch is a critical part of our team. That's what you are. And then saying that around the world, we may have people from Athens, Greece today, Philippines tomorrow, who knows, and the different topics and that's what we do. And then the other part that I do is I do not edit my presentations. And in most cases, we release them in 2 hours. that once we do the podcast, 2 hours later, it's out of the door, unedited. That's what I do. And so that makes mine different from most people, and it makes it unique. And then the other part is saying, I have people asking me, saying, what do you podcast about? Anything. Anything that is in the news. And if I don't feel there is something or I see something, I may do solos in between that are very, very successful, and then do it on the same platform. And then be predictable and consistent. Like we have new podcasts every week, 3 or 4 of them, and that's what we do. And I try to be a guest for others, and I understand why we are popular because of my million subscribers on YouTube. That gives others exposure, and that already relates to what I believe is your changes that you are making. How do you make people successful together as podcasters, as host and guest? Because in order for hosts to be successful, you have to have guests that are compatible. And the same the other way around is that I'm not looking at somebody that wants me as a guest as to, okay, how successful are they? That's not the issue. The issue to me is more, are they interesting? It is interesting topics. And most of my podcasts that I do are for an hour approximately. And most of them, they are at an hour. And I like that part of it as well.
Yeah. John, if I can jump back to something I think you said that was really insightful, and you talked about what you do is predictable for the listeners, right? The people that are going to watch, listen, however they're going to consume, it's predictable. And I believe that that's where the medium of podcasting or all content creation is going. I think back to the days when I was younger, like when I was a kid, there was no streaming services, right? Like if I wanted to watch a show, I had to be there at that specific time, specific date. And occasionally you'd be there and then the show wouldn't be on. It'd be a rerun of a different show, something different. And you had no way of knowing until you got there. And it was always, even as a kid, frustrating. We're like, what? Where's my show? It's 7:30 on Tuesday. It's supposed to be here. And I believe that, I won't say that's the only thing that's conditioned humanity to be this way, but many of us, we're conditioned by what we know, by having a rhythm, by having a routine. And I think that too many people that get into content creation, even people from the blogging days, people that are just YouTubers, people that are just podcast on the audio side, or the combination of those things, when we're unpredictable, it makes us very hard to recommend. It makes us very hard to get traction among our listeners because they don't actually know what we're going to do. And listen, we're always continuously improving. So I'm not saying just do the same thing forever, right? Get better and better at what you're doing. But the fact is, I can wake up, and John, I listen to your podcast. I can wake up Monday morning and know that there's an episode that I haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't, I'd be like looking at your social media, like, what's wrong with John? Is he taking a vacation? Like, what's going on here, right? Like, because it's predictable. I know that it's going to happen. And I think the future of those who succeed in this creative endeavor, they have to stay consistent. They have to be predictable among the people that they say they're serving.
Yeah, exactly. And so I find that interesting in a way because I have some people, the other day I came through Vancouver, and at the Vancouver airport, where there's hundreds and hundreds of people flowing to the airport, and I go through it, and all of a sudden somebody comes up to me, and all he did is tug my shoulder, and he said, "I like your podcast." I said,
"Oh, how cool." That's amazing. Isn't that the best compliment? I mean, you got all these businesses, but when someone likes your podcast, what a compliment, right?
Exactly. And so so I find it very, very important, and I like it, and but predictability is important. So now what I get a lot of times is saying, I can't keep up with you because there are so many new ones. But I love it, and I like it. So what would you say then, where you are now, how many years has it been that you started Podmatch again? Was it 2019 when you started?
Started with the idea, but launched on June 15th, 2020.
Yeah. So looking at the nearly 5 years, how much has changed, and not only how much has changed, but when you started, you seldom heard somebody say, I like podcasting, or did you see this on podcast? I'm not even sure if YouTube was on it then, or any of the other platforms that were using a lot of it. So all of that, what is happening now around you, is changing as well. May it be the media as we know it, that is more advertisement, less popular all the time because it is being labeled too far to this side or that side, or whatever it is. Podcasting doesn't do that. It is individuals that's who they are, and I find it often now that podcasting is being talked about much more frequently than it was a long time ago, obviously, but the speed is picking up as to the popularity, in my opinion.
I agree with you that it's picking up, and I laugh a little bit when I hear that, because something I do if I'm out in public, if I'm just listening to someone walk by and I hear someone be like, "Oh, I was listening to this podcast," I'm always like, "Ooh, +1 for podcast. I heard it." Or I was listening to a song from an artist I like recently, and they reference listening to podcasts in the song. I'm like, no way. Like, I had to go back and hear it again. I'm like, really? They're talking about a podcast in a song. So yeah, the popularity has increased. But if I go back to even just 2020, like I started my own show before that, but if in 2020 you saw somebody even doing if they even just had video with their podcast, that was impressive. Like if it was like audio and video, it was like, whoa, that's huge. But also like the rise of AI. I'll be the first to say I'm not a huge AI person necessarily, but what it has enabled us to do is do a lot more without having to spend more money or time. And so like now, like podcasts have transcripts, they have really good titles and descriptions, they got audio, video, anything you can imagine at this point is being created around a podcast, which if I got to 2020, what the average podcaster can do now, only the big production houses could do. You had to have a massive budget in 2020 to do what anybody can do now. Exactly. That's a huge enabling factor for all of us as independent creators.
Yeah, and I love that, Alex, and I'm just the same even at nearly 85, I can say, is that looking back, I came back to the time when I grew up. I still remember in our little town in Holland that the first television set came in, and we went all down there, and my God, and it was snowing a lot, but we could see people and saying, "See, oh, where is he? Oh, there he is!" And oh my God, and we said, "Oh, amazing!" And then the next thing, the little radios that we had that we could use, and I had one of those, amazing. And then the next thing, early '80s, there's the Apple and the Lisa and the computers and all of that, my goodness. And then podcasting, and then the next thing, obviously, iPhones that are now part of our life. Couldn't imagine doing without it. In fact, I have one. I was looking for it. I bought one of the new 17 Pros. It took me a while to figure it out, but I have it hooked up into my ears. So everything is changing so quickly, and then AI, I'm already part of it in terms of I think most people are beyond now, will it go back into the bottle and it should not happen and blah, blah, blah. It's part of our life. It will have as much effect, if not more effect, than computers did in the early 80s. It will become part of our lives. And it will make a difference, a little bit scary in a way, but it will not take over, but it will complement what we're doing. And it is doing that already, even in my life, even in my company's life. And that's, again, part of the evolution. But what I like about the other part, which is a big part of my life, podcasting globally, the new media is first and foremost globally podcasting.
Yeah, it really is. This is like podcasting it's the new media. It really is. Like you can see that traditional methods and stuff like that, and like the channels, the TVs, all that, it's diminishing. And podcasting's rate of growth is unbelievable. And the proof, if someone's like, well, how do you really know that? Look at the amount of people trying to advertise on podcast. I mean, any major brand that you've ever seen out there is now like, please let me be on your podcast, right? Like talk about me on your podcast, about this. And it's interesting to see happening. And I do think though, because there's so many independent podcasters in it, because it's a medium that any of us can create, those of us who take it seriously, who build a rhythm like you have, John, like we're shaping the future of media. Like that's like that's not a small thing. That's huge. And yes, there will always be the big celebrity shows, but the reality is we're seeing that a lot of people don't go to those anymore. They're
Yeah.
going to the person that they're like, I like John. I'm going to listen to John now. And John is not
Yep.
controlled by anyone other than John.
No.
And that's like the first time in history that's ever been that way. Whether you lean right, left, whatever it might be, something's controlled by somebody. But for the first time now, the creator is the one who's in control. And I think that opens a new world. Like you said, that is a new form of media that we've never seen before.
So that being said, Alex, and I agree with you 100%. So as the founder of Podmatch, which is played a major role in the development, evolving of podcasting globally, what would you say to people that are watching us, and millions of them will, is saying, where do we go from here? Not only in North America, but globally. How do you look at it as the founder of Podmatch and having been involved in that from the beginning? And for me, sitting here saying, what would you suggest to people that aspire to becoming involved in podcasting? What should they do? And for my view is that matching people together, individuals together, has been an extremely critical part to us. I don't need you to say that. I can say that as a successful podcaster. That is no question about that. But that then being said, what do you advise people, young people that are sitting there and saying, I want to be part of podcasting, the involving of podcasting globally? What should they do? How do they start? How do they stay the course, even during the difficult times? With all my books that I've done, that are laying here, are they all successful? No, but I know they won't be, but they will be, because I will stay the course. And that's what I do. And I'm, the next book that I'm writing actually is Add You Can, to anybody saying that you can.
Man, so listen, that book sounds good already, John. So I'm excited for that one. I'll add it to my collection of John Brink books. All right. But what you just said matters, like that consistency. Like we talked about that a couple times. And I'm going to point everyone to a resource, but I've got nothing for sale on this resource. It doesn't ask for an email address or anything like that. But podmatch.com/free. Whether you're a podcast guest, host, aspiring host, I've got 9 ideas there that I think will really help kind of set you on the right standard. And again, I don't want your email address or anything like that. But I will say this one that I think it really all begins with. It's having a really solid why or purpose for what you're going to do. Because I think that hearing a conversation like with podcasting veterans like me and John, right? Like 500 episodes, which almost no one's ever done. When you hear us talking, you get really excited. And you're like, cool, I want my piece of that. Great. But that's not a good reason. Like there needs to be something with more depth than just, ooh, it's going to change the world. I want to be part of that. Like, great, but how? But why? And I believe that so many of us, we have to go to that first. We have to look internally. And I always say, grab pen and paper. Like I keep pen and paper by me all the time. Grab pen and paper. Don't use your phone for it. Even if you've got a beautiful 17 Pro Max or whatever they are these days, right? Like, cool. Take pen and paper where you can really sit down and reflect and say, okay, why do I want to do this? Like, why do I want to be a guest? Why do I want to be a host? Why do I want to do both? What is the reason behind this? And I always say have an internal reason, so your own reason. And sure, it can be to build a name for yourself. That's fine. But you also need an external purpose, which is what's this going to do to further the world in a positive way? How is this going to help? I think without doing that first as the foundation and then build consistency on top of that, without having that first though, I don't see many people succeed in podcasting. Very rarely do I ever talk to someone who's maybe even never talk to someone who's a success in podcasting. I ask, how'd you do it? I don't know. I just started and it turned out here. No, people started because there was a specific reason. There was a problem. And maybe it was just, even if it's a comedy podcast, they just want to make people laugh. That's a good reason, right? Like John and I, we're both like busy entrepreneurs. Like at the end of the day, sometimes we just want something to make us laugh, right? So like perhaps that's the purpose of it. But my point is, having something matters before you get started. And you can change course over time, but you got to have something. And I think that the people that get that right and continuously hone in on that, they're the ones that, followed by consistency, are the ones making real names for themselves and serving the world at a high level.
I agree. And so the other part about it is that listen to others. Make sure that you understand podcasting to somebody that is beginning and see what others do in terms of communications. How does it work? Be a guest maybe. How would you say somebody should start? Should they start hosting or being a guest, or how do they start from the beginning?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this a little bit, John, but I think I've come to the conclusion that being a guest first is a lower barrier to entry. And so before you go and set up a podcast and all that stuff, sometimes it's easier if you have a message and a story you want to get out, go on a couple shows. Listen, I don't even care if they have like listeners. If they're brand new and small, that's fine. That's not the purpose. The purpose of it is getting out there to see if you like the medium and think that you can actually help somebody who hears it. And so I think that's a great place to start. I've actually had people who I've given this advice to, John, they did it and they're like, I hated it. So should I start a show? I'm like, no, if you didn't have fun doing it, this is not for you, right? Like if you hated the process, like if you don't like being a guest, you're really not going to like being a host, because it's like being a guest, but with a lot more work, right? And so I suggest, I think, again, I've gone back and forth, and John, I'm actually curious to hear your opinion as well. But right now I'm leaning more toward the start as a guest, if you just do one or two, to make sure this is something that you enjoy. But John, actually, I would love to hear, what do you think?
In my case, for everybody, it's different. I started hosting because of the blogging that I did, and then the thing that I did, the form of podcasting with local media and the television and presentations. So I kind of floated into that, and I didn't really become a guest for others or being recognized as a potential guest until I got involved with Podmatch. And so that brought me into becoming a guest. So now usually the ratio is we probably do 3 or 4 podcasts where I'm a host, and then always a couple a week where I'm a guest at others' podcasts.
It's good to hear your perspective, especially as you being a former blogger, you're a writer. It makes sense that starting your own show it kind of almost seems like it was a natural next step.
Correct.
So that does make sense. I think you're right. So again, like I said, I kind of go back and forth. You're probably right. I probably need to look at someone's experience to help them determine which lane is right. Because if you're just totally novice and you've never done any of this, guesting, I'd still lean toward. But like you said, you've already got a blog, you've written, and maybe being a host because you already understand what it takes. So that was good. Thank you, John. That helped me, actually. I appreciate it.
So the other part, Alex, would be that, we find people. This is just very much all at its infancy in my mind. I tell you why I believe that is that, and obviously it has moved a long point from where we were before you started Podmatch. We have gone a long, long distance, but there is far, far further to go. It appears to me North America, and particularly the United States, is very much involved. Probably of all the people that are involved, if I look at, my million subscribers on YouTube, and that means that is only YouTube. There are the other platforms as well, but probably 60% of our listeners are from the United States, probably 20-25% from Canada, and then the rest from other places. I believe that there is a lot more opportunity that is already evolving in North America, for one, and then in terms of Europe, we're still at its infancy, in my opinion, although there is more and more of it, especially the English speaking, which is most of Western Europe, have English as the second language. If I look at Holland as an example, most people in Holland speak English in combination with Dutch, love to speak English actually. But I've always been amazed that there is not activity of a Podmatch, and maybe you are doing that, or in what form do you bring it, Or is it one of those things that I'm kind of looking at you and your organization is saying, let's work steady, not go too fast, too quick into other areas, because I can look at Europe, France, Italy, Spain, Holland, Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, all of those are love interaction that we are doing. And so when will they evolve, or is something missing in the modeling in those areas?
Yeah, this is the industry, from like inside industry. This is the conversation I think is happening among a lot of companies. Like, how do we break in these other sectors? And that's a conversation I like to sit and listen at, because I don't really understand it yet, even myself. We've done some like low key testing to see if we can break into markets, and we decided, we tried a few of them. We decided works is if there's some sort of in-person podcasting presence, it's easier to break into that market. If there's no in-person meetup groups, conferences, it's much harder. And so that's what we've started realizing. So an example, we noticed that there was a New Zealand, which is not a big space, right? Not a big place, but there was a New Zealand podcasting conference. And so we kind of broke in with that group, and we started promoting Podmatch over there. And what do you know? We had this huge influx of people signing up. And so I was like, okay, so there is merit to that. At the same time, we've tried a couple different European nations, some of the smaller ones that don't have that in-person presence. And it seems that no matter what we do, we just aren't able to break in at this point. So it's very interesting. It's like there needs to be something in person. Even if the people are attending it or not, they just see something that's local to them. And they're like, oh, who's associated with this? Oh, Podmatch is. We'll be part of it. I'm starting to see that be a trend that I think might work. Again, no one's really figured this out yet, but I will say that this is like a personal project I'm working on.
So I'm looking at doing that in Western Europe, is saying that how can I had to reach a certain level, 500 podcasts with the founder of Podmatch, amazing. The other one is my 1 million subscribers on YouTube, is a platform. So now I want to go further, trying to find somebody to podcast with. I think I'm doing the first one on Friday. Can you imagine? I've been looking for, in Holland, I say, guys, everybody loves Canada, everybody loves immigrants, everybody loves what I'm talking about. I know they do. Not me necessarily, but the topics that we have. So that is in Sweden, Norway, Finland, Germany, Holland, Belgium, France, Spain. So I want to get involved in that area in some form. So I leave that with you as a thought, and saying, what can we do with John? Because he already has a platform here. Obviously, I would go so far as saying we are personal friends, because we all started at the beginning, including golf balls and the other things. Yeah. So
we are. We're friends at this point. So grateful podcasting brought us together. But yes, we are friends.
Alex, it was a pleasure and a privilege to have you on my podcast. And I'm proud to say on my podcast always, Podmatch, very, very important to us. That is the foundation and part of our team, and it will remain that way. I give that to you as thoughts. Where do we go from here? What else can I do to work with you to make this even grow further? All for the right reasons, not for money, but because I have an obligation to share with others some of our experiences that we have had, and hopefully they will get encouragement in saying, listening to the podcast with John Brink and others changed my life or affected my life in a positive way. And that to me is important.
Man, I'm right there with you. This is just as important to me. I think that you and I are really like-minded, and in many ways, both still just getting our start in the podcasting space. Even though you're 500 episodes in, I'm a couple hundred episodes behind you, but I'm working my way there. But yeah, I think there's many more great things to come. And man, I learned from this conversation today. You gave me some things to think about, and man, thank you for that. And congratulations on 500 episodes again.
Thanks again, Alex. Take care.